Have you ever wondered how much it must cost a 2x2 family here in Australia to make a living? Well then, keep watching. Hey there guys, and welcome back to CHAMONIX TV. In today's video, I'm going to give you an overview of how much it costs for a normal kind of family of four. I say normal because, you know, that's the usual kind of composition that you get, 2x2, in Australia to have a general good standard of living. I've helped thousands of people in the past get what they want in life, and similarly today, I would love to help you to make better decisions and know what's involved and try and get your bum here in Australia as soon as possible. But before we jump in, I want to make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. Have you hit that button yet? Please make sure that you do, because we have got lots of videos coming up similar to this one. Things like what the definitions are that's involved in immigration or moving to Australia. Job board, or do you do your application directly, or do you do it through a recruitment agent? How does a student visa work? What's involved in coming to Australia and being a student here as an international visitor? All right, let's dive in. Here are the typical costs that you would expect to find if you were living in Australia as a 2x2 or 2 adults and 2 children kind of family. The premises of this video is based on a monthly layout, so I've broken it down into, well, basically monthly. Even though a lot of the expenses in Australia are paid either weekly or fortnightly, I've made it into a monthly analysis, and then also where applicable, it's being given to you as an annual analysis. It's also based, as I said, on a 2x2, so 2 adults and 2 children, whereas we've taken the example of 1 primary school age child, and 1 preschool age child. And these expenses are also based on somebody who might be living in one of the cities in Australia as opposed to in a regional or rural area, where the only real difference probably would be the accommodation costs. Okay, we'll start off with your medical expenses. Now, 2 categories that I'm mentioning here. The first is for your medical fund, or as they like to call it in Australia, your health fund. And for a typical family of 4, your monthly expense for your medical fund or your health fund would be about $350. Now that is for your private health fund. Of course, remember in Australia, they have something called Medicare, which is something that you have to pay anyway, but that is encountered through your tax. If you have your annual tax done, that's when you have to pay for that regardless. But a health or a medical fund is an optional choice. Then a typical other kind of expense that you can expect alongside your health fund would be maybe like your pharmacy bills or medicine. And we have taken that, which is relevant to our family, of about $126 a month of that. For groceries, of course, it depends on what you eat and how much you eat and the different kind of specials that you would like to treat your family with. Whether you like caviar on toast or whether you eat the more traditional way. But again, we've based these expenses on how it is for us as a family, and our typical grocery bill would be about $1,500 a month. For dining and takeout, so everything that you consume when it's not through the grocery store at your home that you buy, and that is an amount of about $250 per month for a typical family of 4. For phones and internet, works out to be about $300, and that is if you have 2 mobile phones with unlimited data packages, as well as your broadband, your internet at home, and that is, again, most of the packages these days are unlimited in the download capacity that you have. So $300 a month for a typical family of 4 with 2 paid mobile phone contracts on there. Then for utilities, electricity, gas and water. Now, we pay typically about $140 a month for our electricity at home, which is based on the fact that we have had solar on our roof installed. So we have got the maximum number of solar panels on our roof. And over and above that, we still pay about $140 for our electricity a month. But we also run an Airbnb, and so on the same premises. And this electricity bill covers the running of 2 air conditionings for the house, warm or cold, whichever way. Then for gas, a typical expense per month works out for about $100, and that is for the heating in winter. We have really great gas in WA, whereas it comes out of the wall, we don't have to buy the bottles. So it's gas on tap, I guess you call it, which is really fabulous. And our gas heater is our preferred method of heating our house. And also we use gas for our stovetops. So that works out. Oh, and also our water heater, because we don't have the typical electricity geysers, as we call it in South Africa. Here, a geyser is not the same thing. A geyser here refers to an old person. They talk about a hot water system. And the hot water systems here are generally powered by gas or heated up by gas. So that's about $100 a month. Then for water, our water expenses per month works out to be $200, give or take. And again, that's based on a family of 4. So we have worked that back. It's not based on us as a family of 6, but we've worked out how much it would be for a family of 4. And the water bill includes the reticulation for the garden. And also for us, we have quite a bit of laundry because, again, we run an Airbnb as well. So, yes, your typical water bill would probably be a little bit less. Rates for a property, the local government rates that we have to pay, land tax is $167 a month. And that is only if you are the owner of a house. Of course, if you're renting, then you don't have to pay land tax. Rent or mortgage, if you buy a house, a typical size house would be a 4x2 kind of house. We've worked out would be around $2,000 for your mortgage that you will be doing a repayment on per month. And this is based on the minimum repayment amount. And then if you wanted to rent instead of buying a house, then with $500 a week, you could be getting a very reasonable size house for a family of 4. Daycare is really expensive in Australia. Now, $2,200 a month will get you 2 kids full-time in daycare. I know, very expensive. I want to say ridiculous, but that's how it works here because labor is such an expensive commodity, so to say, in Australia. So daycare turns out to work out as much the same or as much as it would cost you to have one of your children in a private school in their high school years. School, of course, here you can go to a government school and it's practically for free. Although you have to add what they call activity fees and small things it's not compulsory, but they request that parents pay that upfront. And these include extra kind of activities that they do when they go on trips with the school, or for things like apps for their iPads that they have to install, and there might be a subscription fee involved. So that works out to be about $17 per month for a child to go to a public school in Australia if you pay the contributory or the non-obligatory payment that the schools kindly ask you donate, essentially. But I have to say that excludes your iPad. So you have to also, that includes your stationery because you get the list in the beginning of the year and then you can either order it through a company that will deliver you all the stationery that your child needs for that year, or you can go and buy it yourself outright. But it's about $17, which includes the activity fees at the school as well as the stationery needs that your child will have, but it excludes the iPad. And a lot of the schools in Australia these days require the students to have their own iPads. For example, the school that our children goes to, they're called an Apple approved school. So they have all the students bring their own Apple iPads or iPads and no other tablets because they have found that it's the best in terms of having everybody have the same kind of tablets, and it helps the teachers as well and the support desk to troubleshoot if there are any issues with children's tablets. But as of year 1, our children are required to take an iPad to school every day. But that's not all the schools. Some schools are different. I'm just mentioning how it is for our children in one of the public schools here in Perth. Now, if you have a car, your vehicle rego, as they call it, which is the short for vehicle registration fee, the rego, works out to be about $75 a month as well. And your fuel for your vehicles will be about $70 per car, again, per month, depending on how far you drive, of course. But this is based on us, a typical we're a 2x4 family, but we've reworked the fuel into how it would be for a 2x2 family. And so $75 per car per family is what you could expect to be paying for. Driver's license. In Australia, you can renew your driver's license, I think it's every 5 years that they require you to do that. And a 5-year renewal fee costs $150 for one driver's license. And so if you work that back into how much it costs you per month, it costs you $6 a month to have your driver's license. The next thing on the list, insurance. Now, you get all different kinds of insurance, of course. You get life insurance, and you get home and content insurance, and you get vehicle insurance and pet insurance. Now, us as a family, we have 2 dogs, but we actually do not have pet insurance because we decided we'll pay as we go to the vet. That said, 2 things that are much more expensive in Australia than in South Africa are vet bills and dental bills. So I really suggest that you get those if you have animals, or obviously if you have teeth. In other words, if you go back to the previous conversation or the previous comments I made around the medical fund, the health fund, that usually includes dental coverage as well. So make sure that you, if that's something that's important to you as a family, have a good dental cover. But yes, pet insurance is also very expensive in Australia, but it covers those really expensive vet bills that you inevitably will have at some point in time during your animal or your dog or your cat's life. Now, the home and contents insurance work out to be about $83 a month. That's based on an average estimate. So assumption of you owning your home, and then if you only obviously take insurance on the content alone when you're renting, and so you're not taking insurance on the building, then that cost per month would be less as well. As for life insurance, it's usually included in your superannuation. Now, superannuation is like your pension fund in Australia, and it can be additional cost depending on how old you are. But yes, it's generally included in your superannuation. But if you want to take out additional coverage, like if you don't want just say $500,000 death and disability cover, you might have to contact either your current superannuation to see if you can have a greater coverage of your life insurance, or you can just contact a life insurance company and take out an additional policy to cover you for a higher amount in the case of death. Now, before we continue, the question is, are you following along? I know, lots of figures and many things thrown around, but remember, you can download the PDF that's a part of this video that will give you a breakdown of everything that I'm discussing in this video, and it'll give you a better idea of how it all sits in the bigger picture. But let's continue. Another cost that you have these days, especially now with the internet and the online kind of world that we're living, is we have a lot of subscriptions. Now, if your family is like our family, we have a YouTube subscription for our family because we don't like to see ads. And of course, since I'm a YouTuber and this is my gig, YouTube is what we'll be paying for a subscription every month. It costs about $30 for our monthly family subscription, and that's the premium subscription for YouTube. And we find that it's worth its money in gold almost 7 times over because, yes, again, we watch a lot of YouTube and we don't like wasting our time on ads and seeing things that we don't really want to be seeing at that point in time. We also, for example, have a subscription for like a exercise / menu app. where it gives you ideas of meals that you can make, and then also it has like a daily program that you can run your exercises with. And so the one that I have at this point is called Center 6, and that costs $10 a month if you pay it annually. Of course, most of these things, if you pay it annually, it's cheaper per month than when you pay it monthly. But a lot of these subscription apps or subscription websites usually have you with a no locked-in contract option. Foxtel, which is the cable television that they have in Australia, that works out to be about $60 a month, or from $60 a month, and that depends on how many packages you want to add on top. You want to have just Discovery Channel or Discovery Plus, the Lifestyle Channel, and Sky News and every other kind of news channel. So yes, so we find that Foxtel is rather expensive, especially because these days you have all these other things like Netflix and the likes, where you pay, which is my next one, Netflix or Stan, where you pay like $20 a month. So $60 for cable TV versus $20 for Netflix or Stan. Depends on what you're after. We used to have Foxtel for many years, but with YouTube and Netflix and Stan, we have actually stopped our Foxtel subscription. Okay, the next thing is hair color and haircut. Now, that's something you've got to do. A girl's got to do what a girl's got to do, and I'm sure the men also like to have their hair cut every so often. So I actually go to a hair salon that's very reasonable in their prices compared to probably most others in Perth. And per month, it really works out to be about $172 for both myself and Carl if you work it out back monthly. That said, if you don't have regular color and styling done to your hair, you wouldn't be paying $172. But it's $30 for a men's haircut most places. So that's what it would cost you to groom yourself. And then for the kids' activities, again, the premise is that you have young children who are active. And we have children who do a number of things. So they do rugby lessons as well as swimming, ninja lessons, which is like an obstacle course kind of extracurricular activity. And they also do tumbling, which is like gymnastics essentially. And the costs for rugby is $20 per child per month. For swimming, it's $68 per child per month. For ninja lessons or the obstacle course lessons, that's $80 per child per month. Yes, rather expensive. And then the tumbling works out to be $50 per child per month. And again, that's like one lesson a week essentially, except the rugby depends on the age. But with the rugby, they have 2 days of training and then they have a game on the Saturday. Now, 2 costs that we didn't include here are travel and clothing, because that's really dependent on yourself and your kind of interest as a family, whether you travel at all or not. Well, sure, if you're like us in the middle of COVID, which everybody in the world is at the moment, there's not much travel happening, except in Australia, people now travel locally, and traveling within Australia is often much more expensive than traveling outside of Australia. So in a way, your travel costs would not be less during COVID, but it might even be more. Because if you were going to, let's say, Bali or Phuket, it would be a much cheaper holiday for you as an Australian rather than to holiday locally in, say, Broome or in Exmouth if you were in WA, or Byron Bay in New South Wales, or if you go to Sydney for a week, or up in Cairns in beautiful Queensland. So yes, and then of course you need to also incorporate your flight tickets, which again, Australia is really big. We forget sometimes when you're in South Africa how big Australia is. It's 5.5 hours flight from Perth on the western side of Australia to Brisbane on the eastern side of Australia. So to give you an idea, 5.5 hours flight one way. Whereas I think Joburg to Cape Town is like 1.5 hours. So very big island that we live on here in Australia. So in terms of clothing, it depends. It depends on how expensive you want to shop, how cheap you want to shop, how often you want to shop. There are some really good bargains that can be found at the shops in Australia. And I think Australia is known as the country of specials or sales. There's a sale around the corner for every shop. They have everything, like they call it liquidation sales, they call it moving sales, they call it financial year-end sales, like you name it. I'm pretty sure there's like a sale every 2 weeks in Australia. So if you're just clever with how you spend your dollar, it can really stretch much further in terms of most things, really. Clothes, even travel, because you get specials that go every so often. And yeah, it's just if you want to shop expensive or online or not, that's up to you. So travel and clothes, I have not specifically given an amount to, and that's something that you'll have to, it'd be very similar to what you spend in South Africa. So for the total kind of costs, we've said it's about $5,007 per month, which includes medical, utilities, internet and mobile, groceries, rent, insurance, one vehicle's registration, petrol, insurance for your vehicle, and your subscription. So if you take all of that into account, it's about $5,007. And then for your one child at preschool or full-time daycare, it would be $1,100 a month, and $135 a month for one child in school, including about 2 extracurricular activities. Because if you're in the government schools here, they don't have many sporting kind of activities that's part of the school. You have to do that at clubs after school hours, whereas in South Africa we tend to have a lot of those activities during school hours. So $135 for one child school plus activities a month, the $1,100 if you have one child in full-time daycare, $5,000 for the family's expenses of all those other things I've mentioned. Then in terms of a car, you could buy a decent sized car for about $30,000 to $35,000, and we're talking about a small SUV like a RAV4 or any of those kinds of little 4x4 type of vehicles. I say little, they're probably not little, but you know what I mean. It's not one of the massive go on 4x4 touring, and that's out of the box. So starting from $30,000 to $35,000, you can get a very decent new car. And so if you buy your vehicle on a loan, it'll cost you about $560 a month. That's based on if it costs you $30,000 to buy the car, and if you take the mortgage over a 5-year period, which is what they typically do here for cars, and at a rate of 4.5% monthly interest that you have to pay. So a $30,000 to $35,000 car would work out about $560 repayment per month. The question of the day is, how many people are in your family unit, and do you generally do activities with them, like extracurricular activities? Do they do rugby or play netball or any of those? Please drop it down in the comments below, and it would be interesting to see what our viewers' family composition looks like. Please hit up the like button if you have enjoyed this video, if you have found any valuable information in it. Subscribe, that would be really lovely. Share the video with a friend, because you never know, there might be somebody on your friends list who would love to come to Australia and haven't heard this information yet. So it's really important that you have an idea of how much you would need to be able to live in Australia. You can join me on Facebook. CHAMONIX TV is our Facebook page. And we also have a really good email list where we email very special information to our community every week. So if you'd like to get on that, please drop us a comment below this video. And remember to design the one life that you have to make it the best life ever that you could live. You only have this one go at it. You can do it. Make it worth your while. I'll see you in the next video. Adios, amigos.